He said don't sleep on the right side. I didn't listen. I regret everything. The moving van rumbled away, leaving me standing on the cracked asphalt driveway of my new, well, not exactly home, more like my new holding cell. A weathered two-story house clinging to the edge of town, nestled so deep in the Appalachian foothills that cell service was a luxury, not a right. Perfect. Exactly what I needed. Isolation. Divorce had a way of stripping you bare, leaving you raw, exposed, and desperately searching for a place to lick your wounds. Sarah had been meticulous. The house, the friends, even the dog all gone, wiped clean. This place, this wreck was all I could afford, and honestly all I deserved. The air hung thick and heavy, scented with damp earth and the decaying leaves that carpeted the overgrown yard. The house next door was a skeletal silhouette against the fading light, windows like vacant eyes staring out into the encroaching woods. Abandoned, I'd learned from the realtor. Been that way for years. I wrestled my few boxes inside, the floorboards groaning under my weight. The interior was dim, even with the overhead light on. Dust motes danced in the weak beam, coating everything in a fine layer of neglect. The previous owners had left behind, well, everything they didn't want, which wasn't much. A stained mattress, a rickety table, a couple of mismatched chairs. Enough to survive, I supposed. I chose the least offensive bedroom, the one with a window overlooking the woods. The mattress, thankfully, was new. I collapsed onto it, the springs protesting with a metallic shriek. Exhaustion settled over me like a shroud. Maybe, just maybe, I could finally get some sleep. The insomnia had been relentless since everything fell apart. The knock startled me. I sat up, heart hammering. Who would be calling on me already? I hadn't even unpacked. An old man stood on my porch, framed by the gathering dusk. He was thin, almost skeletal, with eyes that seemed to have absorbed all the darkness of the surrounding woods. He wore a faded flannel shirt and overalls, his hands gnarled and calloused. He looked like he'd been carved from the same ancient trees that surrounded the house. "You the new fella?" he croaked, his voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind. I nodded. "Elias Thorne." "Hemlock," he said, offering a hand. His grip was surprisingly firm. "Jedediah Hemlock. Live just down the road." I shook his hand, a sense of unease creeping over me. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Hemlock." He didn't smile. "Just Hemlock will do. Figured I'd come welcome you and offer some advice." He paused, his gaze shifting to the house behind me. "That house, it's got a history, a bad one." I sighed inwardly. "Great, just what I needed. Small town superstitions." "I appreciate the thought, but I'm not really into ghost stories, Mr. Hemlock." He fixed me with a piercing stare. "This ain't no story, son, this is a warning about that bed you got in there." He nodded towards the bedroom window. "The bed?" I asked, confused. "Specifically," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper, "don't you go sleeping on the right side of it." I blinked. "Excuse me, the right side," he repeated, emphasizing each word. "Don't you sleep there? Never, not even for a minute." "And why not?" I asked, my skepticism growing. He hesitated, looking over his shoulder as if afraid someone might be listening. "There's things that come. They feed on," he trailed off, shaking his head. "Just trust me, sleep on the left, always, it's for your own good." He turned to leave, disappearing into the gathering darkness as quickly as he'd appeared. I stood there for a long moment, staring after him. Old man Hemlock, what a character. I dismissed his warning as the ramblings of a senile old coot. Still, a sliver of unease remained. That night I consciously chose the left side of the bed. The mattress was lumpy, the pillow flat, but I was too exhausted to care. I drifted off almost immediately, only to be jolted awake a few hours later by a loud bang. I sat up, heart pounding. The house was silent, too silent. I listened intently but heard nothing else. Probably just the old house settling, I told myself. I tossed and turned for the rest of the night, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. The next few days followed a similar pattern. I'd spend my waking hours unpacking, cleaning, and trying to make the house habitable. The abandoned house next door loomed, a constant reminder of my own isolation. I started to notice details I hadn't seen before, strange symbols etched into the wood siding, the overgrown yard littered with what looked like animal bones. It was unsettling, to say the least. Sleep remained elusive. When I did manage to drift off, I was plagued by vivid, disturbing dreams. Images of shadows lurking in the corners of my room, whispers just beyond the threshold of hearing, the feeling of something cold and malevolent pressing down on me. Always, though, I was on the left side of the bed. I called Dr. Reed, my therapist from back in the city. She'd been supportive, or as supportive as a therapist could be when you told them your life had imploded. I told her about the insomnia, the dreams, the old man's warning. "It sounds like you're experiencing increased anxiety, Elias," she said, her voice calm and reassuring. "The change of scenery, the stress of the divorce, it's all taking its toll. Perhaps we should consider adjusting your medication." I agreed reluctantly. I hated the pills, the way they dulled my senses, but I was desperate for relief. One night, after days of relentless insomnia, I cracked. I'd taken a double dose of my sleeping pills, hoping to finally get a decent night's rest, but the pills did nothing. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing, exhaustion gnawing at me. Around 3 a.m., I finally drifted off. I don't remember consciously deciding to switch sides, but somehow in my sleep-deprived state, I ended up on the right side of the bed. The dream was immediate and overwhelming. I was standing in the abandoned house next door. The air was thick with the smell of decay and something else, something acrid like burnt hair. The house was different than I remembered, darker, more menacing. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist, taking on grotesque shapes. I wandered through the rooms, drawn by an unseen force. The floorboards creaked under my feet, the sound echoing in the oppressive silence. I could feel eyes on me, watching me from the darkness. In the living room, I saw it. A figure standing in the corner, shrouded in shadow. It was tall and gaunt, its features obscured by the darkness. But I could feel its presence, a palpable wave of malevolence that washed over me. It spoke, its voice a raspy whisper that seemed to resonate in my very bones. "You shouldn't be here," it said. "This is not your place." I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The figure began to advance, its shadow stretching out to engulf me. I could feel its cold breath on my neck, hear its whispered threats. Then I woke up. I was drenched in sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. The room was dark, silent. I was lying on the right side of the bed. I scrambled to the other side, my body trembling. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched. The dream had been so vivid, so real. It felt like more than just a dream. From that night on, things got worse. The nightmares intensified, becoming more frequent and more terrifying. They always involved the abandoned house, the shadowy figure, and the overwhelming sense of dread. During the day, I started to see things. Flickers of movement in my peripheral vision, shadows dancing in the corners of my eyes. I'd hear whispers when I was alone, just beyond the threshold of hearing. I started to question my sanity. I told Dr. Reed about the dream, about the visions. She listened patiently, her expression concerned. "Elias, I'm worried about you," she said. "These hallucinations, they're not a good sign. We need to adjust your medication again, and I think it's time we considered hospitalization." Hospitalization? No, I couldn't do that. That would mean admitting defeat. "I'm fine, Dr. Reed," I said, trying to sound convincing. "I just need some rest." She sighed. "Elias, you haven't slept properly in weeks. You're not fine. Please consider my advice." I ignored her. I was convinced that the answer wasn't in medication or therapy. It was in the house next door. I started to investigate. I'd sneak over to the abandoned property during the day, searching for clues. The house was in worse shape than I'd thought. The roof was collapsing, the windows boarded up, the yard completely overgrown. I found strange symbols etched into the wood siding, symbols that looked vaguely occult. I found animal bones scattered throughout the yard, arranged in what looked like ritualistic patterns. I started researching local history, searching for any information about the house. I learned that it had been built in the early 1900s by a family named Blackwood. They'd been reclusive and secretive, and there were rumors of dark practices and strange rituals. The family had disappeared without a trace in the 1950s, and the house had been abandoned ever since. The more I learned, the more convinced I became that there was something sinister connected to the house, something that was feeding on my fear and anxiety. My behavior became increasingly erratic. I'd spend hours poring over old books and websites, searching for answers. I'd argue with Dr. Reed, accusing her of not believing me. I alienated the neighbors with my increasingly bizarre questions and accusations. One day, Sarah called. I hadn't spoken to her in months. The conversation was strained, awkward. She asked how I was doing. I told her about the house, the nightmares, the visions. She didn't believe me, of course. She thought I was losing it. "Elias, you need help," she said, her voice filled with concern. "Please get help." Her words triggered something inside me. A wave of guilt and regret washed over me. I started to cry, sobbing uncontrollably. "It's all my fault," I said. "I ruined everything." The call ended abruptly. I felt worse than ever. That night I had the worst nightmare yet. I was in the abandoned house, but this time it was different. The house was alive, breathing. The walls seemed to pulse, the floorboards writhed like snakes. The shadowy figure was there, standing in the center of the room. But now I could see it more clearly. It was tall and emaciated, with long, skeletal fingers and eyes that burned with an unholy light. It reached out to me, its touch cold and clammy. I could feel its presence invading my mind, probing my deepest fears and insecurities. It whispered in my ear, its voice a chorus of tormented souls. "You belong to us now," it said. "You can never escape." I woke up screaming. I knew then that I couldn't run. I had to confront it. I had to face whatever was in that house. I waited until nightfall. Armed with a flashlight and a rusty crowbar, I crept over to the abandoned property. The house loomed in the darkness, a black void against the starless sky. The front door was locked, but I managed to pry it open with the crowbar. I stepped inside, the air thick with the stench of decay. The house was even more unsettling in the dark. The shadows seemed to dance and writhe, playing tricks on my eyes. I could hear whispers all around me, just beyond the threshold of hearing. I moved slowly through the rooms, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. I found strange symbols painted on the walls, ritualistic diagrams that sent a chill down my spine. In the basement, I found it. A hidden passage, concealed behind a loose stone wall. I pried the stones away, revealing a narrow opening that led down into the earth. I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, the point of no return. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The passage sloped downwards, leading me deeper and deeper into the earth. The air grew colder and damper, the silence more oppressive. Finally, the passage opened into a large, subterranean chamber. The chamber was lit by an eerie, phosphorescent glow that emanated from the walls. In the center of the chamber, I saw it, the source of the nightmares, the entity. It was a swirling vortex of darkness, a shapeless mass of energy that pulsed with malevolent intent. It was surrounded by a circle of human skulls, arranged in a ritualistic pattern. I could feel its power, its overwhelming presence. It was feeding on my fear, my guilt, my despair. It spoke to me, its voice a telepathic projection that resonated in my mind. "You have come to me," it said. "You are mine now." I tried to resist, but its power was too strong. It began to invade my mind, twisting my thoughts, distorting my perceptions. I saw visions of Sarah, of our failed marriage, of all the mistakes I had made. I saw images of death, of suffering, of endless despair. The entity was feeding on my trauma, using it to strengthen its hold on me. I knew that if I didn't fight back, I would be lost forever. I remembered what old man Hemlock had said. It feeds on negative emotions. I had to find something positive, something to fight back with. I thought of my mother, of her unwavering love and support. I thought of the few good moments in my marriage, the laughter, the connection. I focused on those memories, clinging to them like a lifeline. The entity recoiled, its power weakening. It hissed and writhed, its form becoming more chaotic. I knew that I had to destroy it, to sever its connection to this world. I remembered the symbols I had seen in the house. I started to draw them in the air with my finger, channeling my will into them. The symbols glowed with a blinding light, disrupting the entity's power. It screamed in agony, its form dissolving into nothingness. Then everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed. My head was pounding, my body ached. A doctor stood beside me, his expression grave. "You're lucky to be alive, Mr. Thorne," he said. "You were found unconscious in the abandoned house next door. You were suffering from severe trauma and exhaustion." Detective Miller was there too, standing in the corner. He looked at me with a mixture of concern and disbelief. "We found the hidden chamber," he said. "We found the skulls, the symbols. Everything you said was true." I was released from the hospital a few days later. I was still shaken, still haunted by the nightmares, but I was alive. The abandoned house was boarded up, the entrance to the chamber sealed. The town was buzzing with rumors and speculation. I moved out of the house on the edge of town. I couldn't stay there any longer. I still see doctor, read. I still take my medication. I still have nightmares, but they're not as intense as they used to be. I sleep on the left side of the bed now, always. Sometimes I wonder if it was all a hallucination, a product of my own fractured mind. But then I remember the feeling of the entity's presence, the cold breath on my neck, the whispers in the darkness. And I know that it was real. Something real tried to consume me, whether it was a thing inside me or outside me. And I'm not sure I truly won.